Hello and welcome to the Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, the Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is needing a wee at 3 a.m. when you have a co-sleeping baby. This becomes an expedition for both of you. Does anybody else know what I mean? The other night I was up feeding so much, I think he's teething again, and it got to 3 a.m. and I really needed the loo. But he was in that kind of sleepy state where he wasn't fully asleep. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just slink out the room. You have to wait till they're in a deep sleep. But I was desperate. So I decided we'd both have to go. I bit the bullet. I carried him out of the bed. And there I was at 3 a.m, sat having a wee, wondering if there was anyone else out there doing the same thing as me right now. Because I swear motherhood takes you to some places, doesn't it? How are we all? Are we feeding? Are we trying to sleep? Are we exhausted? I hope wherever you are, you're holding up. I've had another few nights lately where it just feels like I've barely slept. And then it's up and at 'em at 6:30 a.m. with a 1, 3 and 5-year-old who are all firing on all cylinders at that time while I rip myself up from the bed. It's no joke, that tiredness, is it? And then I'm taunted by these 5 a.m. mums who are sat having their coffee in peace in the garden in the morning saying, wake at 5 before the children, you'll feel amazing. And then there I am at 10:30, 11 p.m. every night telling myself to go to bed, but I just want 5 more minutes to myself. It's just such a catch-22, isn't it? But one thing I will say just before I dive in is I had a lovely message from a lovely listener called Abby this week, and I'll jump into her email in just a little bit. But she did ask if I had a donation page, which I thought was really lovely of her. So I thought I'd just mention it in the opening section. If anybody would like to donate, it's on Buy Me a Coffee, and I will leave the link in the show notes. The amount of messages I've had this week about mummy maxing is amazing. Clearly, this resonates with a lot of you. And it made me wonder, has motherhood been turned into a self-improvement project? I spoke about mummy maxing maybe a week or two ago, and I think that because of all the noise we have as modern mums, we feel like we need to perfect every aspect, like the perfect nursery, perfect sleep routine, perfect weaning, perfect body after birth, perfect sensory activities, family meals, morning routine. And it's exhausting, even though I'm pretty good at seeing through the guise of social media and the pressure we're under. It does still get to me at times. I'm plating up the baby's lunch, and into my head enters the Pinterest perfect plate that I saw on Instagram the other day. Even though I do my very best to shut that noise out, it's there lurking in the subconscious. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same. And I actually read this week that experts are now warning that it's becoming so damaging to maternal mental health because mums feel like every decision is another test that they could fail. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with, wanting to do your best for your child, I do wonder whether somewhere along the line we've crossed into something else. Every scroll seems to tell us there's a better way to do what we're already doing, or there's another expert, another hack, another product, another routine that's supposedly going to transform your life and family life. And I don't know, I think before you know it, even something as simple as taking your baby to the park can feel like you're wondering whether you should have packed a sensory activity for while you're there, or a developmental toy, or an organic snack, or a Montessori-inspired bloody game. And I just think it's exhausting. And I think this mummy maxing, there's something to be said about it, because I genuinely don't think that new mums are failing because they're not doing enough. I think it's the complete opposite. I think many of them are exhausted because they feel like they're supposed to be doing everything. And we've somehow created this idea that every moment has to be enriching and educational or optimized. But I don't think babies know they're supposed to be having an optimized childhood. I think they remember connection and ultimately feeling safe and being loved. And I saw a reel the other day, and it was about how mums, 20, 30, 40 years ago didn't feel like they had to be present in our every moment as children. They would do the washing while we played in the mud, and they would take us to IKEA of a weekend because they needed to buy new wardrobes. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to go to this fun fair at 10, then we're going to go to ballet practice at 1, then we're going to go to the museum at 3, and then we're going to round it off with a trip to a restaurant. Like, I feel like we all kind of, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but optimize our weekends around our babies and our children because we see so much of it online that you must be going to this new Montessori experience at the Trafford Centre or da, 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 da. And it's like, like we as parents need to thrive as well. And I think we need to remember that back in the day, we didn't know much about how to stimulate our children, how to use Montessori to help them develop and what we should be doing, shouldn't be doing. And we all thrived. I think it's not that we have to optimize everything, basically. I think it's just a reminder that just being present, folding your laundry while they play is absolutely fine. Doing the things that make you happy as well, rather than feeling like every moment has to be mummy maxed. Permission to skip the sensory tray, and permission to buy the fish fingers, and permission to leave the washing for another hour or day if you're daring that pile to build like me. But maybe this week, instead of asking how can I be a better mum, we should ask how can I make motherhood feel a little bit lighter. And I have a feeling that question might do us all a lot more good. Okay, on to the emails. I had a lovely email from a mum called Abby this week, who is also from Manchester, and she gave us a recommendation. So for anyone in the Manchester area or Northwest, I just thought I'd give this place a little shout out from Abby. So it says, if you or any listeners are looking for a baby/toddler friendly place to visit this summer, I'm blessed to live local to We Are Mother Zen in Ramsbottom. It's a little play cafe focused on being a chilled out cafe experience for parents, all child safe, with plenty of sensory activities and space to park a pram. It has community days during the week where you can have a chat with a visiting lactation consultant, or access to a sling library where you can rent out slings and carriers until you find the right fit for you. And it's a really lovely community hub. So I just thought I wanted to share that because that sounds like such a lovely place. I love anything like that. Good old play cafe. There's one or two near me as well. And I think the fact that they have, the sling library, I've never heard that before. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, if you're local, absolutely check it out. And if you're not local, maybe have a look at places like that near you, because I do think more and more are starting to pop up. I think they're a great idea. And it's good just being able to go to somewhere like that as a mum and know you can not switch off completely, but switch off a bit and let your baby or your toddler roam around while you have a little bit of respite, even though you never truly switch off. But yeah, thought I'd share that. Next email comes from a listener called Kim in Australia, who's written in before actually, and the title is A Sleep Regression Question from a Fellow Listener. I'm writing because I could really use some reassurance from someone who's been through this before. My little boy is now 3.5 months old, and I think we've entered the world of sleep regression. Up until recently, I felt like we were finding our rhythm, but now he will only settle to sleep while soothing on my nipple. The moment I transfer him into his cot, he wakes instantly and goes from asleep to proper crying within seconds. At the moment, the only reliable way I can get him to nap is on me. Part of me worries that I'm creating bad habits and making things harder for us down the track, But another part of me wants to lean into the contact naps because it's clearly what he needs right now. And if I'm honest, I love them too. I'd love to know your thoughts. Did you ever go through something similar with your little ones? Is this just one of those phases that passes? I keep responding to what he needs. Should I keep responding to what he needs, or should I be trying to encourage more independent sleep? Okay, I've been there. With my first, I was quite similar to you. I was worried about, I hate the word bad habits because it's so, it's this narrative around parenting that's pushed in the West that annoys me now. I've had 3, and it's like, you need to train them to go in the cart. If you feed them to sleep, you could create bad habits. And I read this quote that says 9 months in you, 9 months on you, 9 months next to you. And I've really lived by that more and more. Because I think when you have your first baby, you listen to those around you, you read some of the books, and I think some of the books are outdated now and some of the advice is outdated now. This whole push to get them in the cart, you'll create bad habits. I think we are coming through the other side, and me personally, I've lent into my son's contact naps, and listeners of the podcast who've listened for at least the past year will know I used to record this podcast while he fed on me of a morning and went to sleep. Now, he's no longer having that big morning nap, so I'm just currently watching the baby monitor because I am recording this while he's asleep, but he's starting to wriggle. So we shall see how this goes. But what I'm saying is, I've lent in to the feeding to sleep, to the contact naps, and I know after having 2 older ones, they learn to sleep. Okay, it might not be when they're 1 or when they're even 2, but my 3 and 5-year-old now, touch wood, they go to bed well at night time. We have a story, they go to sleep in their beds. And sometimes my 3-year-old will wake and get in with us, sometimes she won't. That doesn't worry me, because I know it's not going to last forever. It doesn't last forever. So I really want to remind you that you aren't creating bad habits. If anything, I think you're giving them such great comfort by leaning into the contact naps. Now, I know that not all mums can. I know that maternity leave varies around the world and some mums have to go back to work as a necessity. But if you are in a position where you're with them in the day, please don't feel bad for having those contact naps. I don't think, if you are prepared to have them on you a bit longer, of an evening. Up until 2 months ago, I would hold him on me of an evening while we watched telly. I would still keep him on me until he was about 11 months. And that's partly because I think he's probably going to be our last baby. So I'm kind of really leaning into that a lot this time around. But right now, I'm watching him on a baby monitor. He's asleep. It is 8:20. And yes, he doesn't go through many sleep cycles without me, but it gives me a bit of time to myself. And I want you to know that they will sleep through. They will start to go down easier. It will get easier. Like I said, with all 3 of mine, I have been very much a feed to sleep. I would try and settle my first in the cot a lot. And I did get her into that habit of feeding her and settling her at about 14 months. That is when she started to sleep through, actually, 14 months, which was like, it came out of the blue. So yeah, that's my opinion, is don't beat yourself up about creating bad habits. I think you're giving them the soothing contact that they want. That's my school of thought. And if you want to lean into them contact naps, soak them up because they grow fast, them kids. I'm looking at my 5-year-old this afternoon thinking, how are you 5? It just goes before your eyes. So I hope that helps. Don't worry, there's a lot of mums out there in the same boat, because I was holding my son, like I said, of an evening on me, and I got chatting to another mum at playgroup and she was like, oh yeah, I do the same. So many mums out there are in a very similar boat, and it's only a snapshot that you get online of that. So do ultimately what is right for you and your baby. And coming from experience, my experience is that you're not going to create so-called bad habits, and they will get to an age where they will go to bed and it's all good. Hope that helps. Next tonight is what's trending, and it made me laugh this week when I come across this. Apparently there's a name for something I'm sure many of us have experienced, which is called Gramnesia. Gramnesia. If you haven't heard the term before, it's the idea that grandparents and great-grandparents seem to completely forget what it's actually like having a baby at times. So like these kind of comments, oh, you all slept through by 6 weeks, we just put you down awake and off you went, we never needed all these gadgets, or my personal favourite, just pop the baby down for a nap. Now, don't get me wrong, my parents aren't really like this. My parents were really quite young when they had me, so they're very young grandparents, which is wonderful because they've got all this energy to run around with the kids, and they don't really, my mum's very much an attachment kind of parent like me, so she's not into any of this cry out or anything like that, but there'll be comments every now and then from like great nans or like other family members, and you're like, yeah, that that doesn't work like that anymore. And before anyone gets offended, I actually think it comes from a lovely place in that most grandparents genuinely want to help, and I think time has a wonderful way of softening the hard bits. Like they're remembering the cuddles, the first smiles, the family holidays, not the 3 a.m. feeds where they couldn't remember their own postcode, like what we're going through at the moment. And in a way, it's probably reassuring that maybe one day we'll all be guilty of a little bit of gramnesia ourselves. Our children will be stood in the kitchens with newborns saying, Mummy hasn't slept for 3 nights. And we hear ourselves saying something like, oh, I don't remember you being like that. But I do think it's a good reminder that memory's a funny thing. And if you're in the thick of it right now, in the trenches, wondering why you're finding motherhood harder than your mum or mother-in-law seems to remember, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It might just mean they've forgotten the relentless, hard, difficult early weeks. So if someone tells you, you were an angel, we just put you down for a nap and you didn't cry, just smile and remember that sleep deprivation affects memory in more ways than one. And I'd love to know, has anyone in your family come out with a classic case of gramnesia? Send them in, because I have a feeling there'll be some brilliant ones out there. The nightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Tonight's self-care tip is a bit random, and it is to touch something that isn't plastic. And this sounds really odd, but bear with me. When you're a new mum, it can feel like a bit of a world of plastic, bottles, toys, sterilisers, high chairs, changing mats. It's all cluttery and lots of things that you've got to clean. And, but today, I think, or tomorrow, if you're listening to this at night, go outside and touch something real. Run your hand along the bark of a tree. Pick some lavender. Walk barefoot on the grass for a minute. That's meant to really ground you. That my mum is very holistic. She's into aromatherapy and Reiki and yoga, and she went out with my 3-year-old the other day and the baby for a walk, and she'd come back and she'd been literally doing that. We've just picked some lavender from the neighbour's house. We had a lovely chat with them, and then we went and hugged a tree. And my 3-year-old was just hugging a tree, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to be more in touch with nature. We need to go out and we need to hug a tree. So if you can, even if you just go and sit outside with a coffee and put your bare feet on the grass, just ground yourself with nature. Step away from all the noise and the baby things and the clutter that we have to constantly clean. And some days when you're in that newborn bubble, you can find that you don't leave the house and you're just in. At the end of the day, you can get a bit pent. So if you can, go for a pram walk, go for a walk in your garden, and just be at one with nature for a few minutes. And it might just help ground you and remind you of the important things, if you know what I mean. Finally, to finish on a quote, one day you'll ache to return to this season, the messy, magical nights. Right now it's hard, you're tired, but these 2 a.m. feeds, the tiny fingers wrapped around yours, one day There'll be a dream you'd give anything to relive. Soak in the love, even in the chaos. Thank you for listening tonight. Thank you for sending in your emails, as always. If I don't read your email out on the podcast, I'll always reply and have some lovely conversations with you guys. So please keep your emails coming in. And if you have enjoyed tonight's episode, please drop me a review. And send me an email, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Wishing you a restful, hopefully sleep-filled night ahead. Good night.